Okay. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. Oh, April's here. Good. We are here to talk about human-centered design for program improvement. Again, my name is Judy. I'm here with Civic Makers. I'm going to go ahead and have Britt advance the slides. So Civic Makers, we are a civic design firm. That means that we work with municipalities, we work with institutions, we work with bureaucracies, we work with nonprofits, we work with mission-driven organizations to bring in a creative, collaborative problem-solving process called human-centered design. It underpins all of our work. So some of our work might look like strategic planning or community engagement. All of that is built with the methodology that is human-centered design that we're going to talk about a little bit today. I know that this is a training, and we typically do, we're not going to be able to get into a whole sort of like practicing today. Today is going to be about the theory of human-centered design with some examples of practice, right? And then we brought in some of our co-pilots from Project Spark to talk about specifically how we're using human-centered design within that program and how we might bring human-centered design into CalWORKs and some of your colleges as well. So what you're looking at now is some of our clients that we've had over the past 6.5 years that we're a small consultancy, and we have a team of 7. Go ahead, Britt. I may not have mentioned that we're based in San Francisco, but most of our clients are municipalities around the Bay Area. As I mentioned, I'm Judy. I'm a co-founder and managing partner, and with me I have Britt. You want to say hello, Britt?
Sure. Hi, my name is Brittany Henry. I prefer to go by Britt, she, her pronouns. I am a project facilitator with Civic Makers, and so that means I specialize in holding very difficult, very complex conversations with broad audiences, and it's a personal favorite of mine.
All right, thank you, Britt. One of many of her superpowers. And then who is not here today is our design researcher in the middle, Leah. So we are actually the project team for Project Spark, which we'll talk about a little bit. And the 3 of us get to head up a lot of the educational and learning experiences with our clients. So for example, we work with the city of San Jose to learn and apply human-centered design in a cohort based model. And that's one of the reasons that we were able to work with the California Community Colleges CalWORKs Association. So this is all about us sharing the process and how we actually apply it to project work. Go ahead, next slide, Britt.
And then I will say that we are also a team of 7. So there are 4 other team members that we have that work in various areas. The 3 folks that you see here, we mainly specialize in the human-centered design training. Also, we do a lot of other things, but this is the team that holds down the training specifically.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, Britt. Welcome, welcome. Seeing people filter in. Feel free to use the chat. You're also welcome to share your voice and interrupt us at points. This is not lecture style, Dr. Letitia Hagler. I would love to hear your voice more. So we want to kind of make this a little bit of a conversation. Britt is putting the prompt in here as well. And I would love to introduce our Spark leaders who are going to share a little bit about their experience with human-centered design once we get a little further into our session here. So April Acosta, would you like to say hello?
Hi, my name is April Acosta, and I'm from Rio Hondo College, and I represent Rio Hondo College, and I'm a Spark student leader.
Woo, thank you, April. So folks in Spark, when we are excited about something, we do Spark fingers, right? Genesis, yes. So we'll do some Spark fingers to welcome April. And we also have Ani.
Hello everyone, my name is Annie Gevorgan, my pronounce is she, her, and I'm the part leader from Glendale Community College since October 15.
Woo!
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ani. So both Ani and April have been part of Project Spark for about 6 months, and they are learning and applying the human-centered design process. So we might reimagine the community college and public benefit systems from their perspectives. Because why do we do it any other way, Lisa? It's so nice to see you. Welcome, welcome. All right, I'm going to bop it over to Britt, who's going to talk about the human-centered design process. Go ahead, Britt.
Yes, so I'm going to give you all a very high overview of human-centered design, kind of the process, the approach, and then Jude will go a little bit more into actual examples of the tools that we use to conduct human-centered design. But just to start, let's talk about what the definition of the process is, right? So human-centered design is a series of decisions to solve a problem where decisions are informed by those who are impacted by the outcome. So human-centered design is very human specific, right? We're putting the human back into design. The human-centered design acknowledges the necessity and value of lived experiences to inform a direct outcome. And it also acknowledges that historically, a lot of these systems, a lot of the institutions at play were designed without really any input from the people that they impact, which in human-centered design, we would say is by nature flawed, because no one can really trump lived experience. And so in HCD, everyone can be considered a designer, with their lived experiences being the expertise that they draw from. So we always say, because me and Judy do not consider ourselves exact design experts, but anyone can really offer expertise that can contribute to the design of something, especially if they are the people who are working in that system or program are ultimately impacted by it. So just to go through a little bit of the approach to design here, it's a collaborative form of problem solving. You usually will be working in a team, and you have your stakeholders, which we'll talk a little bit about exactly what is a stakeholder and how they help you in your design process. We design with, not for the end user. So this is not like development in terms of which we believe that we are the experts that know everything about everything, and we are designing for you. We are designing with you so that there is credible input into the process. Challenges are opportunities to make a positive change. There is constant reiteration. Our firm is constantly reiterating upon everything that we do, and we welcome feedback because we don't want to get to the end of the process and realize that we've built something that is not useful. So constant reiteration, are just opportunities for us to make our design better. And often about redesigning programs or systems. That is specifically what we are using HCD for. It is important to note that HCD is a very common practice when developing products. So it's a very capitalistic, I would say, stay away from that word. It is very rooted in product development, right? In terms of you have a consumer that you are maybe marketing something towards or producing something for. You wouldn't want to produce something without getting input from that consumer if that's something they really need or use, or else you might just be wasting valuable resources in this development. So you can use this for redesigning programs or systems. Next slide. So the human-centered design process has about 5 main phases. The first one is empathize, and this one is probably the most important phase. This is where we get into a lot of active listening, get into a lot of empathy. We talk with our stakeholders to see exactly what are the issues that they are experiencing within a particular system and a particular or a program, right? And what we're looking for here are key themes that are being reiterated across our different stakeholders. And stakeholders can be people. Stakeholders are people. They can be people who are have the direct experience, indirect experience. And I know these are a lot of terms. Judy will go through exactly what is a direct experience stakeholder and an indirect. But we're looking for key themes that are reiterated across our various interviews, because those are the themes we want to focus on, because we're looking for something that's high impact here. right? That's something that'll affect the whole of our audience. And then after we do our interviews, after we synthesize our data, we're going into a define. This is where we really try to figure out what is the challenge here. And so we make challenge statements, which will show you kind of what that process looks like a bit. And then we ideate. This is our creative. This is where we start spitballing ideas. As Judy likes to call it, we throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks, right? And something you'll notice in this diagram, there are arrows moving forward and backwards, right? This process is not one that just moves in one direction. There is always opportunities to go back and empathize. There's always opportunities to go back for us to redefine, because iteration is welcomed here. And then after ideation, we move into prototype. So now we're going to create the vehicle that will take us to change, right? And then we'll test it with our stakeholders to make sure it's actually working. And the process may need to start back over again, or we may need to move on to the next issue that we want to address here. But this is the in general flow. It's very circular. This is not a very linear process. We are constantly in a state of redesigning things, because there have been a lot of things that have been designed faulty. So with that, I will pass it over to Judy, who will take you through some of the tools that we use throughout this process.
All right. Thank you, Britt. Can we give Britt some spark fingers here? A little wave. Thank you. Thank you. Before I move on, any questions or comments based on what you've learned so far? I've seen a little bit in the chat here. Some of you acknowledging that some of the work that you do is actually human-centered or student-centered, we should say, right? So is that a question or a comment that I just heard? Nope. Okay, well, we'll keep going. And what we're going to do is actually show where human-centered design shows up in our systems already. And we want to make enough time at the end of this to have a conversation about how you might want to bring in human-centered design more formally in your space. So what we're looking at here is a tool that we use called stakeholder identification. So what you'll see is our first degree stakeholders. Everyone has a stake in some sort of program outcome, but those whose lives will be affected by that outcome should have the greatest amount of input into how that program or policy is shaped. That's what we're offering here, right? So the direct experience is people with lived experience. So if we want to learn what studenting parents are experiencing and how we might better serve them, who should we talk to? April, I saw you mouth it, but I didn't hear you. Let's hear your voice.
Student parents?
Yes, you should talk to studenting parents about what they need, right? Indirect experience, that's our second degree. That might be some of you who are the counselors or the program managers, right? Those of you who are day-to-day working with individual students on their individual needs and trying to map that to what resources are available within your system. So that typically is someone who is closest to the challenge, but maybe a little bit removed. And you'll see here, this is a Venn diagram, because what that means is some folks with direct experience, i.e. our studenting parents, may end up turning their experience into work, right? So some folks who have had this experience, and I see Maddie nodding, may end up actually going and serving other students, right? The subject expertise here, that might be some of our folks who know a lot about the CalWORKs system. That might be, myself and Britt as holding human-centered design and civic design. That would be a level of expertise that we're bringing into this. But ultimately, the process is about finding common ground between expertise, right? The whole policy making process is based on experts and lived experience. So we're not saying get rid of experts, right? Especially those of you here who have PhDs, for example, right? That is the important, and we want to be able to also integrate input from people who are going to be affected. And then we also have here community connections and power and influence. So this is one of a few tools that is available for you to use and play with on our website, which I'll get to in just a moment. Go ahead, Britt. This is another tool that we've used. So we have been working again with studenting parents to understand what some of their greatest challenges have been in navigating both the community college systems and public assistance systems. This tool is a journey map, so it gives us an opportunity to see what a user experience looks like over time. So what we're mapping here, as you can see, this is on the, oh, sorry, I realize that you can't see my you can't see my cursor, but at the top, we have, this is basically the different stages. How do student parents even know about CalWORKs? What's the application process? You know, how do you attend school and sustain your benefits? Because again, these systems were not designed to interact with each other, right? And then we see a lot about the transfer process and cross transfer. Gabriella loves journey mapping. Awesome. Yes, Latasha, we will definitely give you a copy of this presentation. And I know that it's, at least on my screen, is a little bit pixelated. It's a little hard to see, so apologies for that. Let's go ahead to the next slide. So essentially what we've done is we've taken these challenges and we've mapped them to understand what are the challenges that are experienced over time. And then what we do is we take those and we frame them in a how might we statement. So you'll see here that the human-centered design process or design thinking has actually been used since the 1950s, as Britt was saying, in more in the private sector. One of the sort of foremost design firms that we can reference is IDEO. IDEO has a lot of resources as well. However, when you're working with this process in public service delivery, it's going to look a little bit different. So it's not a one size fits all, because we know that human service delivery is not one size fits all, right? So when we frame a problem into a how might we, we're turning a challenge into an opportunity. How means we assume that a solution might exist. Might means we reduce commitment. So when we're working with our stakeholders, for example, when we're talking to people who are going to be served by the decisions that are made for a program, right? What we don't want to do is set expectations to the point where, you know, we can solve all of the problems they're experiencing, right? So there's a little bit of communication around when you do these stakeholder interviews and what the stakeholders can expect. And then we means we do it together, right? Because the process of innovation, the process of building on each other's ideas, that's the creative collaborative problem solving part. So what we're saying here is that there's no one singular decision maker who is going to make the best decisions for all of us, right? Next slide, Britt. And this is, again, our resource library that's available on our website. Again, sorry for the pixelation here, but there's the stakeholder ID, and we have a journey mapping template, and they're available in a few different formats, so that you can go take a look and see if there's anything that would be helpful to you in your program. Thank you, Britt. And next slide. Okay, Project Spark. So does anybody here who is part of Project Spark want to say what Project Spark is? Ani or April? Genesis, go ahead.
Yeah. So SPARK stands for Student Parents Are Reimagining CalWORKs.
Woo! Thank you, Genesis. You were a little bit of a robot there, but I know that in real life you're a human, so that's okay. Ani, anything you want to add to that?
The project's part is made up of students from different community colleges in California who have come together to redesign the policy inside the CalWORKs system and human-centered using human-centered design. So it might be helpful to understand what is it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ani. Well, let's give Ani a little wave. And this is what Project Spark looks like. You see all of these faces, you see us doing our Spark fingers, and we are sharing the process with our student parent leaders, and then they are actually applying it. We're actually in the process right now of having our Spark leaders co-design the program itself. So we'll talk a little bit about that, because I know that all of you are interested in here because you want to understand how to better serve your students through program design. Next slide, Britt. I think this is still me, right? Okay, so as Ani very well said, Spark is student parents are redesigning or reimagining CalWORKs. So they're conducting their own research. This means that our Spark leaders are both stakeholders, i.e. they have a huge stake in the outcome, and they're designers. Because when they are talking to other student and parents who are part of CalWORKs about their experience, they want to be able to be there present with that student about their own unique experience and not be connecting it so much to theirs, right? So somebody had asked about mindset in the platform. A human-centered design mindset is basically like pretending you're an anthropologist, right? Like if you're an anthropologist, you go into every environment assuming you don't know anything. It's about being curious. It's about having sort of, those of you, our student team parents get it because they are parents and they have gone through the experience of having their children ask them why, right? Ani, that's happened for you? Yeah. And April? Yep. Okay. And what happens when someone asks us why? What happens? What do you have to do when they ask you why? What's powerful about why? Krista, you have to give them an answer. Right, exactly. And what that means is when we drill down and think about why, yes, Karen, awesome reflection. Asking your stakeholders why allows us to drill down a little bit into different motivations and behaviors. It also reminds us that just because something exists as it does today, doesn't mean it always has to be that way. So one of the mindsets that we encounter a lot in our work with government is this, well, that's the way we've always done it, right? It's going to stay because we've always done it that way. But it turns out we designed these systems so we can redesign these systems. Go ahead, Britt. And this is what our, so far, all right, Latasha's into it. Yes, yes, okay, great. This is so far what our program looks like. So we've done some current state mapping in the fall and winter. That again develops a clear understanding of the current system and its pain points as they are experienced by the people who are being served by them. We are about to get into our future state mapping, which is defining a vision of a better future. So that's where we're going to start asking our stakeholders how, right? So we're looking at what are the current challenges as they exist today? What does a vision of a more beautiful future look like? And then eventually, how can we get there? So developing the bridge, which will happen in the fall, this is where we start to prototype. So we learn, here are the challenges that we have, here's what we would like to see change, and then developing our bridge, or we're essentially prototyping different policies, right? And we're sharing that with folks who are going to be able to put those policies to work. Whew, that's a lot of work. Next slide. All right, so now I am going to, first, I want to make sure that everyone gets to see the beauty of this description of human-centered design, because again, we consider ourselves space holders. We're facilitators. We actually dismantle that idea that there's a power dynamic between what is being taught and who is receiving that knowledge, right? So we create a space within Project Spark where everyone's experience contributes to our collective shared knowledge. And what that means is that our Spark leaders take the human-centered design process and they make it their own. So what you see here is one of our teams from the summer described human-centered design like knitting a sweater. If you take a guess at the size, it might end up being too big or small, but with the right measurements of the person you are making it for, it should fit just right. Imagine if we apply that same concept to how we design programs and policies, right? The wearer's input is what matters. HCD is a great way to create outcomes where the ones most affected are affecting the change. So for myself and Britt and Leah, who shared this process, it is so heartening to us to hear folks who are learning it use it in their own way, or even describe it in their own way. So Britt, I think let's go on gallery view right now. Like, let's stop sharing slides so that we can hear from both April and Ani how they have experienced human-centered design within Project Spark. I'll go ahead and start with April. Go ahead, April.
Hi, I'm April from Rio Hondo College, and I'm Student Spark Leader. I have been with Spark now 6 months, and I just have to say that it's been an awesome experience, and the skills that I've learned have been amazing, and I know that I will use them for the rest of my life, whether it's in my personal, life, or my school life, or my career. It has been life-changing. We get to be part of the change, not just, talking about it, but actually being part of the change, which gives us, a lot of satisfaction, a lot of hope, a lot of, just the whole dynamic. It's been the people that we work with, the people that are in Spark together. It's amazing. So I have learned something that I've never known about, and I will take it with me for forever.
Woo! All right, spark fingers for April. Thank you, April. Every time I hear our Spark leaders talk about how they experience Spark, it literally gives me goosebumps. And some of you know that I tend to have some happy tears. So we'll see if that happens today, Karen, huge empath over here. I'm gonna bop it over to Ani, who's gonna talk about her experience. Go ahead, Ani.
Hi, I'm Annie from Glendale Community College, and I'm with Spark for almost 6 months, and it was a great experience for me. What I've learned from Spark project that human-centered design actually is a Spark project that puts together students under the driver's seat to design and redesign both the community colleges and the welfare system. Parenting CalWORKs students are conducting their own research to make the system better using the human-centered design. We have representatives and policymakers from different legislative departments that are ready to listen to the parenting students and help us to solve our problems. And what I've learned, it gave me more power to go ahead and achieve my goals. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Ani. Little wave for Ani. Thank you, Ani and April, for being here. I see some smiling faces from some other Spark leaders as well. Britt, I think that I will go ahead and take the slide sharing. Okay, excellent. One thing that I do want to mention as well is that, again, you all are uniquely situated to be using this process. In fact, many of you already use this process because the idea is that you are understanding unique needs and trying to meet those needs. But what is really powerful about having a process is it gives us shared language, right, Ani? It gives us a way to, it gives us some sort of structure. And the other thing is that this is not going away. In fact, there are many governments throughout the world that require design thinking and human-centered design in their policy development. Finland is one of them. This project was actually funded by the Blue Shield Foundation, where they specifically asked for students to learn and apply human-centered design. So the community college system, especially within CalWORKs, especially in the CalWORKs system, has sort of a running start around this concept that programs and policies and services should be designed with the end user, as we say, in mind. So congrats on that. I'm going to go ahead and move us into some more slides. Let me just make sure we don't have any. Yeah, Krista, we can talk about that. Get in contact with us afterward and we'll see what we can do. Thank you, Genesis, for giving some love to Ani and April.
Did you kind of just answer the question that was earlier by Karen, who said I was going to ask the question how HCD works in government, public service / sector systems that are historically more bureaucratic, centralized, hierarchical, et cetera, which is a wonderful question because institutions are not really designed for change, right? They're more stagnant things. And what we do as we are looking for contracts is we find primed agents, usually, or departments, usually within municipalities, who are mainly acting as a vehicle for change in wherever they're situated at. So it's important for us to have prime partners within those systems who are implementing this design. Hence why Judy mentioned, like, there are governments who are picking up on this and are realizing that the human-centered design is needed actually for effective policy. So that's kind of one of, like, we prime our contracts and, like, who are we talking to? Are they an actual decision maker? What is their agency within a particular municipality? What's the scope of what we're doing here? It's very important for us in those intro to ask all of those questions, because that's really going to determine, are we truly going to be able to implement human-centered design here?
Thank you, Britt and Karen. We can, that would be a whole other session. That could be a half-day session. I'm not opposed to it, but maybe we can co-create that in some way outside of our ATI here. Cool. Thank you for asking good questions. Thank you, Britt, for monitoring the chat. So just wanted to show again how our Spark leaders are using some of the tools of human-centered design. To the right here, you'll see this is an impact and effort matrix. So once we get to the point where we have some ideas for how to meet our stakeholders' challenge, then we need to prioritize those ideas, because we can't bring every idea to life, right? So we map them along level of impact versus level of effort. That's just one sort of decision-making matrix that might be helpful. And this slide actually came from our Spark leaders as part of a showcase that we do at the end of each design sprint. And you'll see here that the how might we questions here that are on the left, these are Spark leaders taking the challenge and breaking them down into more accessible pieces, right? Because we can't solve one big, huge challenge at a time. What we do is we break them up. So these are some examples of some how might we's. How might we break stigma and judgment? How might we eliminate communication barriers, right? How effectively are resources serving parenting students, and how might we eliminate the reasons why student parents do not use campus and public support? So these are examples of some of the how might we's we're exploring within Project Spark. Go ahead, Britt. Oh wait, it's me.
I was like, what?
Oh, okay, and so another thing that we are looking at is how we can influence systems. So we have our core stakeholders here, our student parents. Most of you, I think, are here at the school level, right? So how can, from where you sit, student parents help to shape what happens at the school level. And then as we're going through the challenges that our stakeholders are experiencing, we're mapping it to, is this a county level? Is there a county level solution? Is there a state level solution? Is there a federal level solution? So we're looking at all of these challenges from systems perspectives as well.
And I'll just add, Judy, if you can go back to the other slide, like this is really kind of the important part of human-centered design, is getting to all of this specificity of like, what are our stakeholders? Where do they sit at in this system, right? Because in order to impact change on the system, you have to understand how it operates and how it was designed. If we're redesigning things, we have to understand how a system was initially designed, to understand what do we need to do here to create very specific solutions.
Thank you, Brent. And this quote here is actually part of something that is very inspiring to us. And in fact, what I'm going to do is put a little definition into the chat. So nothing about us without us. Can anyone tell me what you think that means? What does that mean? Or does anyone know where it comes from? Benita or Karen, my Sparkers, you can't answer it because I know you already know. ADA, Heather says ADA. Heather, do you want to share your voice a little bit there?
Hi, everyone. Actually, I teach a class and I just taught this to my students. Yeah. The ADA has a huge history in the civil rights movement, and also in helping develop a lot of accommodations across a lot of public programs. And that was one of their big sayings or gathering points vocally, is so many decisions have been made about them without their input.
Yes.
And so it was this hugely powerful expression that is now continued on to other programs, which is pretty cool.
Yes, excellent. Thank you, Heather. That's so amazing to hear that you're teaching that. And one of the way to think about this, right, is like during the ADA is the Americans with Disabilities Act, right? So that is federal policy that was created. And at the time that policy was being shaped, disability and accessibility activists were saying, listen, if you're going to design a public building to, for example, accommodate a wheelchair, shouldn't somebody who navigates the world in a wheelchair day to day help actually shape that policy? So that's kind of I think that's a really strong example of where human-centered design is sort of primed, as we said earlier, Karen, to, I'm going to use the word infiltrate our institutions and policies so that they can actually work for the people they're intended to. Imagine that. Okay. And then another thing that we want to share with you all is from our brilliant current president of the Community Colleges CalWORKs Association, Erin Edwards. And that is the link between guided pathways and human-centered design, because as we mentioned, you all already know how to do this. Let's just tell everyone else that you know how to do this, right? So what this looks like here is, again, this is a link between guided pathways and human-centered design. And I am not going to use my voice to describe that. I'm actually going to use Erin's voice. So give me just a moment here too.
So for our community college people, I thought I'd put human-centered design, which we're going to be talking about a lot.
You got it, Judes? Yeah.
Yeah, hold please. Sorry. All right. Let's see here. There we go.
We all know guided pathways, right? We know exactly what it is. What are some of the principles, the values of guided pathways? Well, it's equity-centered, it's data-driven, it's student-centered. We put students at the center when we do guided pathways. It's results oriented. The whole thing is about increasing graduation and transfer for our students. It's all about redesigning colleges so that they work better for students. And you might not have ever thought about this before. Guided pathways is an outcome. It's an outcome. What many colleges are struggling with is, what is the process though to get to guided pathways? Next animation, please. In Project Spark, we really believe that human-centered design is a very important process to learn if we want to redesign systems so that they work for the users. And we actually think human-centered design is a great way to get to guided pathways. So what are some of the values, the principles of human-centered design? First, it's radically accessible. What does that remind you of? It's equity-centered. It's research-driven. It's all about starting with research and learning. That reminds us all of data-driven. Human-centered design is user-centered. They call it user-centered. We call it student-centered. It's results-oriented. It's all about what is the output of a system and how can we improve the output. That sounds like results-oriented graduations and transfers. And human-centered design is all about.
All right, so you heard it from not just our voice, but again, where are the intersections between the work that you're already doing and how human-centered design can help, again, give us some kind of shared language, shared tools, shared community of practice. We're really big on that at Civic Makers because we know that this is a movement, and we know that we're up against some of these heavily entrenched mindsets, programs, policies, right? That essentially we designed and again can redesign. And with that, I'll bop it over to Britt, who's going to share some quotes from some of our stakeholders. Go ahead, Britt.
Yeah, so just wanted to share a couple of comments because at the end of those 3 cohorts, we always prioritize having a showcase, which is a chance for parenting students to present the research that they've been doing, the challenge definitions or the challenge statements that they've come up with, and actually get to say it to people who are in situations of possibly forming policy and ask for like feedback on it. And so that's like a really important part of each cohort is that they have that time to really like summarize all of their findings and say it to someone that can give them feedback. So here's some quotes that we've heard from stakeholders who have attended those showcases. One person was Damian Ladd, who's the section chief for the California Department of Social Services. With the quality of presentations you all gave, you can come work at my office tomorrow. If I could think of a way to go about getting good ideas, I couldn't think of a better way than this, right? And that's really important and encouraging and affirming quote to hear, because that means that our parenting students are doing the right work, right? This is someone very high up within California Department of Social Services that does this work day in and day out and is a system expert, right? Definitely has that, knows when there's good research being done. And then another stakeholder, Michael Hopper, counselor at LA Technical College. I'm super impressed by the terminology being used and work being done within the Spark program. This is on par with the type of work I am doing in graduate school. Our parenting students are doing graduate level research, right? In terms of like learning how to synthesize, how to actively listen and empathize. The work they're doing is very high level and they are absolutely killing it. And then when you involve the people, who are the experts in the issue, those living within the system, the impact is astronomical. And that is exactly what we want to hear. That is someone who gets it and sees the value in terms of what this program is offering and attempting to do.
Thank you, Britt. And we will end our little portion of talking at you with one of our favorite quotes from one of our favorite organizations in this civic design, human-centered design space, which is the reality of our society is that any system produces what it was designed to produce. When Britt and I were talking about this earlier, we were talking about the fact that our systems are designed to keep people in poverty, right? That when we're encouraging people to go after low income, low skill. No, every job is skilled, but go after low income work instead of pursuing education. We're intentionally keeping people within some certain level, right? And if oppression, inequalities, and equities are designed, which they have been, they can be redesigned. So as we strive for human equity, we have to be able to recognize inequity and have the ability to recognize ourselves as designers who have the power to disrupt it. So with that, we want to thank you for joining. We want to have a little bit of Q&A. And then I'm also going to make sure that everyone has, oh, Karen looks so happy that everyone has my and Britt's contact information, and also our student parent human-centered design experts. Those of you who are on this call, give a little wave, right? Experts in human-centered design. There you are. Oh, I see you got the equity-centered design field guide from Creative Reaction Lab. Karen knows what's up. Britt, anything else we want to add? Any questions, comments from folks here?
I have nothing to add. I'm super interested in what questions do people have, or comments. We welcome comments too.
And this is a time where oh, Karen raised her hand. Go ahead, Karen.
I just wanted to thank Judy and Britt and our Spark students, Ani G from Glendale College. I'm also from Glendale College, so I know her well. And yeah, this was just amazing. This is such a great presentation and great workshop. So I just wanted to show my gratitude and really, like, yes, I was very excited, really was looking forward to it, and it just exceeded any expectations I had. So thank you so much.
Oh, I felt that. I felt that in my energy systems, Britt.
We take affirmations here.
Go ahead, Maddie.
So thank you for the presentation. So we have a lot of new staff in our department, and a lot of this is like a foreign language to them. So how can we approach them to better understand it with our policies in our department?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Maddie. So again, part of what so human-centered design is intended to be accessible, right? We're not always providing access to folks because sometimes we're using language that doesn't align with their understanding of, what they may already be doing, right, Maddie, which is like prioritizing the interests and needs of their students. So conceptually, that's at the root of this, right? Human-centered design, it's actually, the process is a series of decisions, right? The design process is just a series of decisions that are made. When those decisions are made with input, that's when we're actually able to deliver things that are going to work for our students, right? So in terms of, Britt and I really like to kind of break down some of these, because again, a lot of this methodology lives in private sector, lives in, the Stanford D School, for example. Not everyone is going to have access, right? So I would say using terms that are going to resonate, meaning, see here, like, this is just collaborative problem solving. It is, we often call it multi-stakeholder engagement. So it's not that you always have to say empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test, right? And in some cases, this is called an innovation methodology. But what that encourages us to do is to rethink the concept of innovation, right? Because sometimes we think about innovation as like the fancy, shiny tech tools, but innovation is really about using what is already there and making it work, right? It's not that we have to throw everything away and start all over. It's that we can use what we have to make it work. Go ahead, Britt.
Yeah, and then I will just add, because we also have to onboard new team members to human-centered design, and not everyone who comes to work at our consulting agency has a background in that. And so we always, one, have new staff members attend a human-centered design training, which we do. We have clients in which city of San Jose that the city workers, we are teaching them human-centered design so they can apply that to various challenge issues that they are working on. We also try to share out as many tools, if anyone's familiar with the term community of practice. So the link to our website that has resources kind of helps get you more familiar with the terminology. But I would say attending a training is like is one of the best way, because human-centered design is kind of a use it or lose it. It is something that you kind of have to engrave yourself into. And we do trainings for organizations, municipalities who are wanting to engage with that, or at least have their employees more in that frame of mind, because it definitely is a frame of mind that you kind of have to like really get into.
And as we speak, I am just going to make this slide deck that we shared available to you all so that you can use it and maybe use it as a way to influence decision makers within your own college, for example, to invest in your students in a way that can be meaningful, and also in a way where we can demonstrate that the community college systems and those of you who work with students every day are already prioritizing their needs over, you're putting people over policy every day, right? And that doesn't happen everywhere. So here is a link to that. It's yours. You can have it. You can even see some of our notes in the slides, and hopefully we'll see more of you. Thank you for the heart, Daniel. Thanks for being here. Maddie, thanks for the question. Karen, thank you for the enthusiasm. Go ahead, Britt.
We've also dropped our contact information. Those are our emails if anyone wants to reach out with any other questions or inquiries.
And huge thank you to Ani and April. Thank you, and our other Sparkers who were here today. And I just want to say that we are so humbled and appreciative to be able to work with such brilliant human-centered designers like April and Ani every week. So thank you all. All right, outro music, Britt.